I lived in the same house for over 40 years, raised a family there, watched the seasons change from the same porch, fixed that leaky kitchen faucet more times than I can count. It was home. It still is, in my heart. But last year, I made a decision that changed everything. I downsized, moved into a smaller place, not because I had to, not because someone told me to, but because deep down, I knew it was time. What no one really talks about, though, is what that process feels like. People say, it's just stuff, or you'll feel freer. And yes, some of that is true, but the truth goes deeper than that. Downsizing isn't just about packing boxes or clearing closets. It's about facing the life you've built, memory by memory, and asking yourself what still fits, what still matters. And let me be honest, it's not easy. Not when every corner of your home holds a story. Not when the silence in an empty room reminds you of everything you've lived through. In this video, I'm going to share what no one told me. The parts that hurt, the parts that healed, the lessons I learned not from a book or a brochure, but from living it. If you're over 60 and thinking about moving into a smaller space, I hope my story helps you. Because this journey, it's more than just moving. It's letting go and starting fresh, with wisdom, not regret. The moment I knew it was time. I remember the exact moment I realized it was time to move. It was not dramatic. There was no big event or crisis. It was a quiet morning like any other. I had just made myself a cup of coffee. The house was still, too still. I stood by the kitchen window, staring out at the backyard. The grass needed mowing again. The fence had a new crack I had not noticed before. And for some reason, that morning, it all felt heavier than usual. I walked from room to room with my mug in hand, and it hit me. I was the only one living in this space, yet I was carrying the weight of a house meant for a family of 4. Every corner held a memory, yes, but it also held responsibility. There was a time when I could clean gutters on a Saturday morning without even thinking about it. Now, just climbing a step stool felt like an event I had to plan ahead for. The maintenance never stopped. The space echoed differently. It did not feel like home in the same way anymore. It started feeling like something I had to manage instead of something that embraced me. I do not think we talk enough about the shift that happens as we age, not just in our bodies, but in the way we connect with space. That house, for decades, had been a place of love, of chaos, of laughter, of growth. But now it felt too big for the life I was actually living. The kitchen table still had 4 chairs, but only one was ever used. The upstairs rooms stayed dark most of the time. The garage was filled with things that had not been touched in years, but somehow still demanded a part of my attention. There was no pressure from my kids, no warning from a doctor, just a deep, quiet awareness that I needed to start living differently, simpler, more intentionally. I wanted to wake up and feel light again, not surrounded by things I no longer needed or haunted by spaces filled with silence. I wanted a place that matched the life I was living now, not the one I used to have. Some people might say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I say, just because something is not broken does not mean it still fits. That house had served me well, but it no longer served who I was becoming. And there is courage in admitting that. I remember saying out loud just to myself, maybe it is time. And once I said it, I felt something I had not felt in years, relief. That is when I knew the decision was already made, not by force, not by guilt, but by a quiet kind of wisdom that comes with age. And once you feel it, once you know it, you cannot unknow it. Sorting memories, not just stuff. People always talk about decluttering like it is just a task, like taking out the trash or organizing a closet. But when you have lived in the same place for over 4 decades, it is not just clutter. It is your life, sitting on every shelf, tucked into every drawer. Every item has a story, a connection, a heartbeat, and deciding what stays and what goes. That is not practical. It is personal. The first box I opened was full of old birthday cards, some from my children when they were young, with crayon letters and messy spelling, others from friends long gone. There was a card from my late brother, written the year before he passed. I sat with that card in my hand for a long time. I do not even remember what I was supposed to be packing in that moment. Time just stopped. That happened a lot. I would find an old photo album and sit on the floor flipping through it, forgetting the whole point was to sort and pack. I came across my son's baseball glove, my daughter's school crafts, the apron my wife used when she baked during the holidays. Each object brought back a moment in time, vivid and alive, and with it came a decision. Do I keep this, or do I let it go? Letting go does not mean forgetting. That was something I had to keep reminding myself. Keeping everything was not the same as honoring the past. Sometimes it was just avoiding the pain of saying goodbye. But I learned something important in that process. Your memories do not live in the objects. They live in you. Still, it was not easy. There were moments I had to stop completely and step outside just to breathe. The emotional weight was more exhausting than the physical task. But with every item I placed in the donation pile, every photo I gently packed, I felt something start to lift, like I was slowly unburdening my soul. I gave some things to my kids, not because I wanted to pass down the stuff, but because I wanted to pass down the stories. I told my daughter about the time we took the beach trip and got sunburned so badly we had to sleep with wet towels. I told my son about the night we built a model rocket in the garage and it caught fire, and we both laughed until we cried. These stories live in us. The objects just open the door. In the end, I did not keep much, but what I kept, those things matter. A small box of letters, a quilt my mother made, one coffee mug with a tiny chip on the rim, but it fits my hand just right. That is all I need. People think downsizing is about getting rid of stuff, but really, it is about holding on. Holding on to what is essential, what still serves you, and releasing what no longer does. I was not clearing space in my home. I was clearing space in my heart. And I will tell you this, it is one of the hardest things I have ever done, and one of the most freeing. 3. The conversations no one prepares you for. Telling my children that I was planning to move was harder than I expected. Not because I thought they would be upset, quite the opposite. I knew they would support me. And they did. But somehow that made it even more emotional. When I told my daughter, she smiled softly and said, "I think that is a good idea, Dad." I nodded, but inside, something twisted a little. It was like I had been holding onto this role, the head of the house, the strong one, the provider. And just like that, it was time to let it go. No one prepares you for the identity shift that comes with aging. You spend your whole life building something, a family, a home, a rhythm, and when the rhythm changes, it takes time to find your new step. That house was never just walls and windows. It was where I raised my kids, where we celebrated birthdays, where we argued and made up. Every squeaky floorboard, every dent in the wall had a story. I was not just leaving a place. I was leaving a version of myself. My son asked if I needed help with the move. I said no at first, stubborn pride, I guess. But he insisted, and eventually, I agreed. We spent a weekend together going through the garage. We found an old box of his comic books, and suddenly, we were both laughing like we had gone back in time. It reminded me that this transition was not just about me. It was about reconnecting. 2. Still, some conversations were harder. A friend of mine, also retired, looked at me and said, "You really think you can live in a place half the size?" It was not criticism. It was fear. His fear. And I recognized it because I had felt it too. Fear of shrinking. Fear of becoming invisible. Fear that downsizing means giving up. But I was beginning to see it differently. It was not about giving up. It was about letting go with grace. One of the hardest things was saying goodbye to neighbors. Some of them I had known for over 30 years. We had watched each other's kids grow up. We had shared meals, borrowed tools, waved from our driveways. Moving meant those everyday connections would change, or maybe disappear. That hurt. But I also realized something. Just because you change location does not mean you lose your community. You carry the important people with you. And sometimes you find new ones in the most unexpected places. What surprised me the most was how much these conversations helped me process my own emotions. Speaking the decision out loud made it real. Hearing my children, my friends, even myself, talk about the move gave me strength. It reminded me that I was not walking away from something. I was walking toward something new, and I will tell you, it takes a certain kind of bravery to start over at this age, but it also comes with a quiet kind of wisdom. The kind you only earn by living through enough life to know when something is no longer serving you. And when that moment comes, no matter how bittersweet, the only real question is, are you ready to listen to it? 4. Picking the right place is more than location. When I first started looking for a new place, I made the mistake of focusing only on the practical things. How many bedrooms? How close to the grocery store? What is the square footage? I thought that was the smart way to approach it, but it did not take long for me to realize. Downsizing is not just a transaction. It is an emotional decision. And choosing the right place means asking yourself much deeper questions than just, is it convenient? I visited a few apartments and smaller houses in the beginning. Some were perfectly fine, clean, well-lit, in good neighborhoods, but none of them felt right. I would walk in, look around, and feel nothing. It was not until I stepped into a small one-bedroom condo on a quiet street that something shifted. There was sunlight pouring through the window. A tree just outside that reminded me of the oak tree in my old backyard. The kitchen had just enough space for one person to cook comfortably, and there was this odd sense of peace I could not explain. That is when I understood I was not looking for a replacement. I was looking for a reset. A place that did not echo the past, but welcomed the present. I did not want to fill it with memories. I wanted to create new ones. I sat on the edge of the empty living room and imagined drinking my morning coffee in silence, reading a book by the window, maybe calling an old friend just to catch up. I did not need a guest room. I did not need a formal dining room. I needed calm. I needed ease. And most of all, I needed a space that made me feel like I could breathe again. Some people warned me about going too small. They said I might feel cramped, like I was losing status or comfort. But the truth is, when you are surrounded only by the things you love and need, the space feels just right. There's nothing extra weighing you down. Every object, every chair, every picture on the wall, it has purpose. It brings peace. I also considered the community. I wanted somewhere quiet, but not isolating. Somewhere I could take a morning walk and maybe run into someone who would smile and say hello. I did not need a lot of activity, just the chance to feel seen. Because one of the unexpected parts of growing older is how invisible you can start to feel. A small hello can mean more than you think. Looking back now, I realize the right place is not about the perfect layout or the best deal. It is about how it makes you feel when you step inside. Do you exhale? Do your shoulders drop just a little? Do you feel like you could be yourself there, without pressure, without pretense? That little condo was not fancy. But the first night I spent there, I slept better than I had in years. And when I woke up, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. I felt home, not because of what was in the room, but because of what I had left behind. The weight, the worry, the need to hold on. That morning, I made coffee in a quiet kitchen, took a deep breath, and smiled. I had found exactly what I needed. 5. The final walkthrough, closing the door. Moving day came faster than I expected. One moment I was sorting through old papers, and the next I was standing in the middle of my empty living room, surrounded by boxes, staring at walls that suddenly looked unfamiliar. It is strange how a place can feel like home for decades, and then, in just a few days, start to feel like a shell. The furniture was gone, the curtains were down, and without the warmth of daily life. The house looked almost like it did the day we moved in. Just older, quieter, and full of ghosts only I could see. I walked from room to room one last time, letting my hand glide across the walls, touching the door frames, the kitchen counters, the windowsills. I paused in the hallway where we used to hang the family photos. The hooks were still there, but the frames were gone. It felt like taking the pictures off the wall had removed something deeper, a layer of identity, of belonging. I stood in what used to be my daughter's room, now bare, and remembered the nights I would peek in to say goodnight, and she would be lost in a book, the lamp casting soft shadows. I whispered goodbye to that moment, even though I knew it had passed long ago. I did not expect to feel so much. I had told myself for weeks that I was ready. I had made lists, organized movers, double-checked paperwork, but nothing prepares you for the moment you have to turn the key for the last time. I stood at the front door, holding the keys in my hand. I looked back once, just once, and that was enough. I said thank you, not out loud, but quietly in my heart. Thank you for sheltering me, for witnessing my life, for giving me more than just a roof, for giving me roots. There is something deeply human about goodbyes, even when you know it is time, even when it is the right decision. A part of you still aches. You are not just leaving a house, you are leaving a season of your life behind. And that comes with weight, but also, oddly, with peace. As I closed the door and stepped outside, I felt the sun on my face. The car was packed. My son was waiting with the engine running. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was not carrying the house on my back anymore. I was just carrying myself. And that was enough. 6. The strange peace of starting over at 70. The first night in my new place, I expected to feel unsettled. I thought I would lie awake, missing the creak of the old floorboards, or the sound of wind through the trees outside my bedroom window. But what I felt instead was quiet. Not the empty kind, the peaceful kind, the kind you feel when something heavy has been lifted, even if you are not sure what it was. There were still boxes in the living room. The couch had not arrived yet. I made myself dinner with just one pan and ate sitting at the kitchen counter. And it was enough. For the first time in years, I did not feel like I had to fill space. I just had to be in it. I woke up early the next morning, opened the blinds, and watched the sun pour into the room. I stood there for a long time, letting the light warm my face. I made a single cup of coffee, sat by the window and listened, not for footsteps or voices, but for myself. And I realized something important. I was not alone. I was with myself. And that mattered. There is a quiet kind of freedom that comes from starting over at this age. You are not trying to impress anyone. You're not chasing status or possessions. You're just trying to live well, with peace and purpose. My days became slower, but more intentional. I started going for short walks in the morning. I found a nearby park bench where I could sit and watch the birds. I began calling old friends, not because I had something urgent to say, but because I simply wanted to hear their voices. At first, I worried about losing the feeling of home. But then I realized home is not where everything is familiar. Home is where you feel safe enough to breathe, to rest, to think. And I was beginning to feel that again. In smaller, quieter ways than before, but no less real. One afternoon, I found myself humming a tune while I made lunch. I had not done that in years. It stopped me in my tracks. That little moment. That was life coming back in, not loudly, but gently. That was healing. People often talk about downsizing as loss, and yes, it is, but not in the way most people think. You are not losing your past. You are making room for what is still to come. You are learning to live with only what you need, and finding that what you need is actually very little. A roof, a warm meal, a voice on the other end of the phone, sunlight on your face. I did not expect to feel more myself in a smaller space, but I do. There is nothing left to prove. No more pretending. Just living, honestly. Fully. And when I look around now and at my favorite chair, the stack of books by the window, the plant I water every morning, I feel grounded. I feel home. What I gained, that no one told me I would. When I started this journey, everyone talked about what I would lose. Fewer rooms, less storage, no backyard. They spoke in terms of subtraction, of reduction. But no one told me what I would gain. No one said that on the other side of letting go, I would find something I had not felt in years. Clarity. It did not happen right away. It was not some dramatic awakening. It came in small moments, like when I opened the closet and found only what I needed, neatly arranged, without clutter. Or when I sat down in the evening and realized I had nothing to fix, nothing to clean, and nowhere to rush off to. Just time. Just space. Just me. For decades, I had been surrounded by things. Useful things, sentimental things, forgotten things. And without even noticing, all those things had started to blur the lines of who I was. Now, in this simpler space, I could hear myself again. My thoughts were clearer, my routines gentler, my sleep deeper. I began to notice little joys, the sound of rain on the window, the way light moved across the room during the day, the rhythm of my breath during morning stretches. These were not dramatic experiences, but they were real, and they reminded me that life does not always need to be loud to be meaningful. I also found that I was more present when I was with people. When my daughter came to visit, we sat and talked without distractions. When a neighbor invited me to a community gathering, I went, not out of obligation, but because I wanted to. Without the weight of my old house and all the responsibilities it carried, I felt lighter. And with that lightness came openness. Downsizing gave me more than space. It gave me permission. Permission to stop performing. Permission to stop holding on to roles that no longer fit. Permission to embrace where I am, not where I was. There is a kind of strength in simplicity, a quiet dignity in saying, "This is enough. I am enough." That is what no one told me, that I would not just be downsizing my home. I would be reclaiming my peace. I thought I would feel smaller. I feel fuller. I thought I would feel lonely. I feel more connected than ever, to myself, to the people I care about, and to the present moment. So here I am, at this new chapter of life. The house is smaller. The days are quieter. But my heart feels lighter. I used to think that moving into a smaller home meant leaving something behind. Now I know it is about making space for what truly matters. Peace, presence, and the simple joys that often get lost in the noise. If you are standing where I stood, unsure, torn between holding on and letting go, I want you to know this. You are not losing your past. You are carrying it forward in a lighter way. You are not stepping away from who you are. You are stepping toward who you are becoming. There is wisdom in knowing when to release. There is strength in choosing less, when less means more clarity, more freedom, more room to breathe. Downsizing is not the end of a story. It is the beginning of a new one written with intention, not obligation. Thank you for spending this time with me. If my journey helped you see yours a little more clearly, I am grateful. And if you are still deciding, take your time. When the moment is right, you will feel it. And when you do not be afraid. Because on the other side of letting go, something beautiful is waiting for you.